over the last 40, 50 years, we don't seem to have reached where products are acceptable in the world. In India, it has improved, especially in the automotive sector, who took quality a little seriously towards late 80s, early 90s, have improved, but still nowhere near the international standards. So in your perspective, what do you think have contributed to this situation that we're still not able to make into world-class products? And even we tried many things, we've improved, but still can't get where we want to be. And that correlates directly to your question of inequality, which you so beautifully write in your books. If the paradox in India, inequality is one of the highest in the world. Indian business organizations have higher profit to earning ratios in the world, second highest to USA. But we have one of the poorest per capita income in the world, in spite of a $4 trillion economy. So what is the paradox? What do you think is where we went wrong, and what do we need to do to get back on track?
Mm-hmm. The Indian economy has got the main problem of the Indian economy, which you said, is that incomes of people are not growing fast enough. Incomes of people who have to work to earn money are not growing fast. In fact, they are declining compared to inflation. The wealth of people who are using their money to invest in other wealth instruments are increasing. So what is work, I come to? If work is something that a human being does with his mind and his body, what is the value we ascribe to that? Value. We've got to the stage where you say the valuation of a company. The valuation of a company is the share prices of the company. What is the real value of the company? What are the assets of the company? Now, if you say the assets of the company are the financial instruments that the company owns, yes, and then you therefore value those and see when you can buy and sell them, merge, and so on. Yeah, you're smart at managing money and can make more money. But look at the people who don't have any wealth to invest to begin with. They have to first earn enough to feed themselves, and that is enough. Then some they can save, and the savings that they have, if they don't get frittered away on emergency exigencies, medical probleming, then they're able to accumulate a little more wealth, which they can then use for their own venture, whatever they want it to be. Buy my own machine, so I can then start doing more skilled work and produce cloth which is better, etc. So our people are deficient of not human capital, they're deficient of wealth capital. So what's the model of an economy in which people who don't have wealth capital are going to, through their work, be able to accumulate enough wealth capital to feel a little more secure about their own lives? Okay, now Gandhiji had the solution. He said that who owns the enterprise always determines two things. One is what the people in the enterprise should do so that it works efficiently. He or she assigns them tasks and then makes sure they're supervised, that they do those tasks and paid accordingly. As well as that it should be fair, meaning if someone is not pulling his weight enough, you fire him, because it's not fair to the enterprise to keep people who got some problem for temporary and so. The second is, after this wealth has been produced by the work of all these people, who decides what to do with the wealth? It's the owner of the wealth, means the investor. In the capitalist model, the owners of the wealth are the investors, the private investors. In the socialist model, the government is the owner of the wealth. In both models, The workers are cogs in machines. There's no difference in the way a large automobile factory is organized in the United States or in the Soviet Union, or was in the Soviet Union. I mean, the same people, Taylor went and advised them on time motion studies on how to make that factory a more efficient machine, as well as Henry Ford actually. He went to the Soviet Union. They were open to technology and he didn't mind to tell them how to organize a large mass production system. So both the Soviet system and the American system, the workers were disempowered people. The theory in the socialist one is the wealth belongs to everybody, but the decision on what I should do today, as well as what may be done with the surplus, is not in my hands. Yeah? So Gandhiji's idea, I'm saying not just Gandhiji, this has been a good idea, is unless the workers can be owners of the tools and instruments that they use, they just are not in control of their lives. Because if a fellow is a very skilled worker, uses some skilled machine, you fire him, half of him is left in the factory. He can no any longer produce that quality stuff. He has to be employed by someone else who has a machine. And he's again just an employee being paid for wage. And this was Marx's thesis, that this model of organization, and I'm saying we of course then said he was against capitalism, because he was defining capitalism as private people owning. But he was as against, as I said, the state owning, because he says the human being gets alienated from their own hands. An old carpenter would carry in his box his skilled tools, and would go and sit and put his enterprise where he wanted and by his own wits produce better stuff, a better carpenter or a better cobbler. You'd go to them and this is good. But once he is now hired as a skilled carpenter or a skilled cobbler in a factory, he just has no option except to get to another employer. So you get this class thing, that there are workers who are employed and then there are people who employ them. And the value, financial value, goes to whoever is employing them, whether it's the state or it's a private person. Now I say the distinction between a private capitalist enterprise and a government-owned so-called socialist enterprise is that at least in the socialist-owned enterprise is declared that the purpose of it is to improve the lives of people. In the case of the capitalist enterprise, it's written there. Your purpose is you've been given limited liability so that you can ensure that the risks that you take won't damage the financial interests of the investors. So it's a flaw in the design of the institution. I'm calling today a flaw. It's considered a genius idea, and that's why, yes, companies have become very rich, destroying the environment, making people into slaves or underpaying them. They become very rich, shareholders have. And this model that socialism is bad and capitalism is good became the model in 1991 all over the world. Because that was the time when the Soviet Union finally gave up and collapsed, and the Washington Consensus began to rule. And the Washington Consensus is, it all has to be private. Government is evil, as Reagan said. Government is not the solution, it's the problem. And today the extreme, you got DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. We also, our people, I'm saying since 2014, started by minimum government, maximum governments. I think this is absurd. For governance, which means being fair and kind to the people who have the least, you need government. If you're going to leave it to the private sector to take care of them, by definition they won't. And this so-called invisible hand always works in the interest of those who behind the scenes control that hand. So we do need not the socialist planning model, but a philosophy that society is primary, economy is there to serve society, and we don't distort society's shape to make the economy more efficient, which leads to the matter about families and women. A woman is, I tell you this, Indian women, and I've observed, especially the poorer ones who have very little time and resources, they bring up 2 or 3 children. They make sure the husband is fed. He has to go a long distance early in the morning to come and come back from work. He is tired. And yet, they'll be the first to wake up and the last to sleep, making sure everybody in the family is done. And in between, they will go out and do some chutta work and part-time work. They will look after, they're on a farm, all the goats and cows and stuff, and do all of that. They're very productive people. But we say, they're not adding to the GDP because no one's paying them money for it. Mm-hmm. But should they have to be paid money for doing good work? Or should they be put on the front lines into a Sukhoi or something and to shoot someone else? And why are we trying to make society divided into fighting machines? We need to be families working together. So I do think we've come to the point to face some fundamental questions. Otherwise, not just India, but the whole world is in a mess. We need a new idea of an economy. And my book here, which has just come out this week, is about reimagining India's economy, the road to more equitable society. Rethink, it's a society, and there needs to be equity and fairness in a society. That's what we should measure, not the size of the economy.
So how some of the countries like South Korea, Japan, Taiwan have been able to make a transformation and for the benefit of the society in their country in terms of at least the monetary wealth?
All not the same, because there's Japan you mentioned, you said South Korea, Taiwan, you said China. I'm going to introduce another country, Vietnam.
Right, now Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. So here's some good, interesting statistics. Yeah, we do know that Japan after the war was the miracle that changed the world, which linked to a quality story. And Japan changed the world, meaning became so dominant in all industries, manufacturing, chemicals, shipbuilding, electronics. They had no raw materials for anything.
Right.
They only had people. So they built their new skills and their competitive skills on the basis that they had the best learning organizations. Japan's philosophy of quality was an organization is a learning organization. And we will enable workers doing whatever they do to be given the time and the tools to figure out for themselves why there's oil spilling out of their machine, dirtying their clothes, why when the machine breaks down they have to run around and be fired for this. Making their own work easier, cleaner. And if all this adds up, obviously there's less waste in the factory, there's less noise in the factory, there's less breakdown in the factory. Now this amazed American people particularly, because their belief is that, a system is like a mechanical system, there's data, and you got to, like an industrial engineer, map the whole system, then have some equations to say this would cause that, and then you put in place instruments to take its signals, and then you can automate it also and put it in. The Japanese factories, when I went to Japan in the early 1980s to find a partner for us in the automotive industry, and before that to study quality with Ichikawa in Japan, I did find that there were no computers in the factories. I did find, this I'm talking of the 1980s, that their factories didn't seem larger, they didn't seem more modern in terms of equipment, but definitely they were quiet. They seemed less waste around, much cleaner. And so, means no waste of time, no waste of material. How did that come about? Because in every operation, everybody was eliminating waste of time and waste of material. And they were doing that because they said, the previous operation may be doing something which is making it hard for me to do something. So I need to give feedback. But I, in turn, must be doing something bad for the next operation. So you make a system where people are informing and learning together as a system. This is what I understood. It's a learning factory where each person is learning, but learning that I must help the other so that others can help me also. a cooperative system. They're not in competition with each other. Whereas in American design of a factory, each person is saying, who's the best and most productive worker, given more, and he is most productive by hogging all the best resources so he can do the easiest work. And so philosophy is very different, that a human being must be the asset, the only asset is in an operation, in a business operation that appreciates its own value, is a human being. If a human being is curious and wants to learn and is provided an environment to learn, the human being becomes more valuable to the organization. Whereas the other system to say, well, I've designed my factory very efficiently, I need these 6 types of skills of workers there, and when the technology changes, I don't need these 6, throw them out, let the system train new people and bring them in, and then they don't fit with each other in the system, and we say soft skills nahi hai. Our whole design program in India for skill development has been based on this false idea of what is industry. Industrialization is a process of learning. Individuals learn, organizations learn, the policymakers learn together. In Korea, same thing. Japan, same thing. China, the same thing. Each country's context is different. So you can't say the Japanese policies could be copied verbatim as is in Korea. No, they weren't. Neither China could copy the other two, or Vietnam. The principles were the same, that any society is a learning society, and competitive advantages will change depending on who learns faster than the others. So this whole previous theory of trade, that every country should concentrate on what it has the most of, and trade with others what they have more of, which is a static theory of development. If England has the better mills to produce textiles, which they got by learning how to do that, and Portugal seems to have better climate to produce port wine, then tell the Portuguese, don't worry about producing textiles, just keep sending us your wine and we'll give you the textiles. हमारे देश को तो ऐसे बर्बाद कर दिया, this industrial philosophy. That we've got the better technology and things in England. Why do you want to keep on making cloth? Yeah, you send the cotton to us, we'll give you mass-produced, cheaper cloth for your masses. And as Gandhiji pointed out, but unless the people make something themselves, where are they going to earn? So this whole thing, a citizen is not a consumer. A citizen is a human being with many needs. Consumption is one. But the human being needs work to be able to consume with dignity. And the human being needs respect and dignity. And inside the factories, like I was describing to you, Soviet Union, others, that's one thing. Workers are not respected. Because they are just to be do or die. जो भी क्या है करो और पूछो नहीं कि हाँ तुम इतने smart नहीं हो. हम समझते हैं कि how this whole system runs. But the Japanese was no. The worker probably understands his situation better than any industrial engineer would.
Why in India we couldn't do that?
It comes to this philosophy, Janak, I'm saying so. Unfortunately, we were in that movement and you were one of the founders of it. We came from Japan and realized that in India, the resource that we have is the largest number of young people. They are extremely talented and bright. I say a person who has not been to school or college in India has even more talent because they learn how to be resilient. When they go to school or college, they're told the one way to do something. They're not flexible or entrepreneurial at all. Whereas a person who hasn't got anything, you can see. Yeah. What is that great movie about Slumdog Millionaire?
Yeah.
There is. You have to be so. Okay. And so we have human beings. I'm saying a human being inherently is the most innovative, entrepreneurial thing. No machine at the moment can substitute this innate ability of a human being. We have the most of the human beings in the world, and young people who want to do something with themselves. They want to be proud of themselves. They want to be respected. And they need to earn. So whatever they can do should be respected. It's valuable work. But if you keep saying, no, the fellow who's investing in the stock market And look how much he made last night and so on. Itna smart hai. Our whole culture's changed towards people want to play gambling games and prove that they're very smart. Who wants to? I also wouldn't today want to be a worker and be put onto a motorcycle to deliver stuff. They're very hard-working people. They take more risks on Blinkits and Ubers and so on. But what respect do we give them? And what do we pay them? What social security do we give them? So it's the philosophy that society owes it to its most vulnerable people to create conditions where they have it, but they should have a fair chance. So this is Gandhiji's dictum to all policymakers, including business people, that please, when you're making any policy, any big decision, anantodaya, think of the poorest person in your sight and how would your decision, find the logic, how would your decision improve the life of that person? Don't think of how first you will grow your wealth so that you will have more philanthropy money to give later. That comes with, poor chaps. See, I have become so smart and wealthy, now I will look after you. Where's the dignity in that?
See, in India, this shift took place in 1991-92. Before that, we didn't have the Western model, but you said the factories were the same, organization was the same, whether West or East didn't matter. And we had a great opportunity to make a transition. So what do you think happened between actually, what I see in the curve post-liberalization, the real income of people actually have gone down, and
Yes.
so-called liberalized society, we seem to have regressed in certain ways in terms of income levels of the below the 50% of people.
Janak, you and I, you're in your 80s and so am I. It's the young people who, it's going to be up to them. But the young people have been taught ideas after 1990s, which you and I think are foreign ideas. Yeah, we grew up in circumstances in our own country, being grounded in a country which was poor, but knowing that there were people around us, like us, who wanted to make a difference, not just to themselves, but I'm saying the Gandhian socialist sort of idea. I want to improve the lives of other poor people also. This was the values. After that time, as I say, it's all become STEM, science, technology, and I add economics and management. You say engineering and mathematics. Everyone wants to go and do management. And what is management? You're taught how to help a company make more money. That's what they're taught in business schools. What is economics nowadays? How to grow the GDP. Where are people listening to learn from other people, learning to listen to people who they look down upon? Okay? Because he's not been to college yet, he can't tell me anything useful. I'm going to teach this person. We're going to give up these ideas. In fact, we better stop and say, let me listen to the people who haven't been corrupted yet with this wrong thinking. So now I do know that we have here people listening in who are younger than both of us, and I do want to keep engaging with these people because I do find that they have the aspiration to change the world like you are describing. Not all of them, unfortunately. Some of them want to be unicorns, but very few, fortunately. A majority of them, of course, want to do better in life and to be respected, but they'd like it to be in a way that their own family's life is also improved, plus their own friends and community is better. And maybe they go beyond that to say, let me think more deeply about why is it that some people, either their caste or their religion or their family circumstances, as good as me, but don't seem to have a chance. So there are many young people in this country. I'm saying so. I engage with them in colleges and universities and the policy groups they formed of their own, and on Zoom because it's easy. I don't travel as much. I'm so delighted with young people questioning, did the right thing happen after 1991? I say yes, it was necessary because maybe the old one had gone a little too overboard and didn't understand the change in the world and the situation. But after that, we've just got to this thing. Anytime now they say we need to have a reform. Just look at our business papers. Reform means less regulation. And the whole labor movement is saying, farmers movement is saying, we want reform of the economic system so we can earn some more and have dignity. The word reform has got co-opted by this whole Reagan sort of thing or Elon Musk thing. Abandon government. Leave the business unregulated.
So you talking about Japan a little earlier. It's one of the most equal societies according to this World
Still.
Quality Report.
And you know, China and Vietnam, and bringing it in, since the 1990s, before the 1990s, India was per capita income little richer than China.
Yes.
It was 6 times richer than Vietnam. Today, per capita income in China is 6 times higher than India, and in Vietnam also 4 times higher than India. What happened, and this is where people find it hard, that those two countries didn't give up their socialist philosophy. That the purpose of a government is to look after all the people, not just the business people.
Okay, Arun, it's very interesting to hear from you about the family and workers and the housewife and care for the society. Okay. Actually, in late 70s, early 80s, that's what I started talking about as a quality, not product quality per se. I made the same statement when I was presenting at the Deming Prize winning ceremony. I was in a company which manufactured graphite electrodes. And occasionally we used to hear, the customer says a graphite electrode broke and you paid compensation and things like that. We didn't care too much about it. But my thinking was if that electrode broke, it went into a melt in the steel furnace. It spoiled the quality of that melt. So whatever you do to rectify it, will never be the same as original. Make a steel product which is defective, maybe a coil, and ultimately somebody converts it into a bicycle or a pump, which is used by a person in a village. Finally, he gets impacted by the errors I make in my company. I started thinking from that perspective, and that came to me also listening to Swami Chinmayanand. And philosophy, he explained to me Gita in a very simple language, logical way of thinking. And that's what I realized. Like you said, the women, and I keep repeating the same thing in many of the lectures I do. They're the first one to wake up in the house, last one to go to sleep. There's all the work much more than the husband does. And she doesn't get tired. She has no privilege leave. She has no casual leave. She has no weekly off, day in and day out. Husband goes to work, comes back after 9 hours, and he's dog tired. He needs a hot cup of tea or coffee to rejuvenate him, and which she provides. And her work doesn't end at the end of the day. She has to succumb to the needs of the husband in the night, take care of that. I believe, but primary reason is she is not doing it for next increment, not doing it she is doing out of love and affection for the family. When the purpose of work is beyond yourself and the larger grouping, the release of energy from within enhances. That's what we call creative work. And in the context of in philosophy, it's to work in a yagna spirit for benefit of a larger group. The release of energy increases when we work for the whole family, and it further increases when you work for the whole department, the whole company, and the whole nation or the world. So when you work for the world like this, then you're like a godhood. So it's aham brahmasmi. But the release of energy is proportionate to the creativity of the work benefits people. So Indian and that's what attracted me to the Japanese way. The philosophy of Tikkun was something similar to what we believe in Indian philosophy. So it is so closely aligned, but somehow we could never make it work. So you brought a new thought to me with the organization structure, economic structure, which doesn't let this natural thought flow. And we talked about learning organization. Again, I recall I was visiting a company in China, Shanghai Electric, the second largest producers of, the compressors for air conditioners and things like that. Virtually in India, they have 60% of market share. Their chairman introduced me to 3 young engineers from India in the R&D center. So he brought them to me and I asked them, what are you doing? And they have been there for 12 months, opening compressors, assembling compressors, learning to do things differently. What will they do? Come back to India? They're being trained for 1 year to become mechanics, engineers, and a manager of a service center here. I don't know of a company in India which will train the most managers, service managers don't even know how to assemble or disassemble. So how will they learn? How will they service it? So this is a challenge which, again, you have reinforced what I've been thinking.